Hello everyone, Danny here today to talk to you about the audiobook Dungeon Mauling, written by Eric Ugland, narrated by Neil Hellegers. If you saw my last review, it was a book 2 in this series. This is book 3 in this series. I said in that review that I was torn between continuing with this series and jumping over to another series, and that I would probably end up listening to 3 books at the same time. That did not happen. One of the things that this author, Eric Ugland, is really, really good at is picking an ending point in his book. He picks ending points in his books that don't make you angry. They don't make you go, why would you stop the book there? Instead, they really, truly grab your interest and have you going, wait a minute, I've got to at least start the next book to see what happens at this moment. Book 1 ended with a life-changing decision, and so you're like, well, what's Montana going to decide? I gotta, and you truly didn't know what's Montana going to decide. I know what I do, but Montana's done a lot of stupid things. He's not the sharpest crayon in the box. And yes, I know Marines eat crayons for breakfast. Whatever, dude. We're colorful people. So, book 2 ends with a life-altering event. So book 1, he has to decide, is he going to accept an offer to become adopted and an heir to a dukedom? Book 2 ends with him, his adopted father being murdered, his mentor being arrested, and him becoming a duke. And then it just ends. And it's done in such a way that you can't just put it down and go, okay, you've got to know, wait a minute, what's his reaction to this going to be? And so then you continue on into the next book. This book ends the same exact way. I've already started into book 4 because I was at work. So I start into book 3. With the intention that I'm going to get to that, figure out what his reaction to this is. I'm going to put the book down and check out that other book series that I was kind of curious about. And then I'll decide between the two. Well, I started into book 3. And I never reached that point where I want to put the book down. I'm not interested in watching TV. I'm not interested in nothing but this book. And I go straight to right to the end. And then it ends. And I kind of have to immediately download book 4. Because I have the entire, I get all my books through Audible. And I already have the entire series on Audible. My youngest son, Justin, my nephew, Caleb, we're all on Audible. We listen to the same books. We talk about them. They got the entire series. And yeah, so that's why I have the entire series. So I had to instantly book 4, going to download it, going to start on it. Okay, I need to stop. And I had to really force myself to stop so that I could record this video without getting the two books confused there. And as soon as this video is over, I'm going to be going straight into book 4 and finishing it. And screw the other books. This is the series I'm into. Now, can the author keep my interest in this series? There is something that occurs in lit RPGs. This is a lit RPG book. And I have yet to find a lit RPG series like this one. There's different styles of lit RPG, but this style of lit RPG has an event that always occurs that causes me to lose complete and total interest in that series. Before I get to that, though, I have a favor to ask. If, like me, you love audiobooks, well, my glasses, everything, please subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, come join me in my audiobook journey. What is that event that occurs? The event that occurs is that the character builds himself to the point of where he's so overpowered for the world that he is that for the world that he's in, the gaming world he's in, that he's basically Superman. And let's face it, Superman's boring. And DC learned that. They learned that the hard way. When you've got... Whoa, splashed up on my glasses. When you've got a character that is so powerful and indestructible, there's no drama. There's no intrigue. I mean, hey, Superman, he faces a guy with a gun. Well, so what? That's no different than when I face my kids with Nerf guns. I mean, I'm 1,000 times stronger than my 8-year-old son. He's firing a Nerf gun at me. It can't even hurt me. And no matter, he can hit me in the face with the Nerf gun. It won't hurt. Superman's the same way. No courage there. No drama. No, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Superman's boring. They eventually had to come up with someone to kill off Superman. And even that, it didn't work. I've never been a Superman fan. He's boring as far as a superhero goes. That happens with lit RPG. These characters become so overpowered for the world that they're in. There's nothing there. There's no chink in the armor. There's no true weakness. Kryptonite is not a true weakness when you live on Earth. I mean, when's the last time you saw kryptonite? I've never seen it. Yeah, it's not a true weakness. and that's the way it becomes. I'm recovering from influenza A, and while they gave me prescription, I forget what it's called anyhow, I'm over that part of it. There are some side effects that the doc said will last a month to 2 months. One of them is this reoccurring cough, which gets worse the more I talk. So I'm going to be doing a lot of drinking in between here. The only other option would be to wait a month or two to post a video, and I really don't want to do that, especially since I'm excited about this book series. So I'm curious to see. Now, Montana has some very obvious weaknesses. And I can definitely see a path. I can see, okay, if the author keeps going in this direction with this story, there's plenty of drama for him to create with Montana, where Montana's overpowered in one area, yet completely vulnerable in another area. And so I can enjoy, and that happens with this book. So book 1, book 2, both had versions of dungeon dives. And here's a little bit of my own personal terminology. A dungeon dive is where you dive into a dungeon, swim around real quick and then get back out. Book 1 and book 2 have a version of a dungeon dive in them. Book 3 is a dungeon crawl. That's where you dive into the dungeon and then you crawl around and you stay in the dungeon, and the entire book is about the dungeon. The entire book is not about the dungeon, but the vast majority of this book is him and his companions battling a dungeon. And you see that this side of Montana is overpowered for the world that he's in. That is made very, very obvious in this dungeon. The ending of his experience in this dungeon just magnifies that to a huge degree. At the same time, he's focused so many points on this one thing because, I don't know, he thought it was cool or whatever. It reflected who he was in his previous life, that he's weak and vulnerable over here. And that's kind of magnified in this book. So you get the enjoyment of watching him use his overpower, and that can be fun, especially when he's facing someone who's a complete and total ass, but thinks that they're stronger and better than him, and then he just stomps them. Yet at the same time, you have the worry about what's going to happen on this side. Who's coming at him this way? You have his internal battle. So he's ashamed. Montana is deeply, truly ashamed of who he was in his previous life. And he wants to change that in this world. He wants to be a good guy in this world. And that creates, it's not something that in the book so far have been a major major dialogue point. He hasn't spent a lot of time talking about it. He hasn't spent a lot of time thinking about it, but it's definitely there. So there's another area where the author can introduce chinks in his armor and use that to keep you interested and drawn in. There's no romantic interest in his life so far, which is kind of interesting because I like a little bit of romance in my books, but there's none in this so far. A new female character gets introduced in this book, and it's kind of interesting because she's been in prison for who knows how long, and it's a dungeon where people get scrawny and grimy and dirty and everything else, and yet somehow she's still hot and sexy and everything else. And when she goes into the dungeon with them, she's forced several times in the dungeon to change her clothing. And Montana watches her eat. So parental warning, we have a hot, sexy chick undressing and redressing several times in this book. And Montana does watch her. His comment throughout the book is, like the gentleman that I am, I watched her. Or like the gentleman that I am, I did not turn my head. So you have that parental warning. You have a good bit of swearing in this book. So that's it. And of course, you've got a lot of violence. But if that catches you by surprise, you don't know much about books. That's to be expected in a book like this. This one has a lot of violence in it because he's going through a dungeon. So you have to have violence in a dungeon. The dungeon crawl is really well done. I really, really enjoyed his time in the dungeon. There were definitely points in there that I felt like he was in true danger and his companions and someone was going to die. There were definitely points in that dungeon. So even with him being so overpowered here, it was not a cakewalk through the dungeon. There were points where I was like, someone's about to die here. Who's going to die? I know who I want to die. Is that person going to die? You've got another character that's introduced in this book that seems like they would be just, a great addition. You're going into the jungle or into the dungeon, and you've got this big, powerful, excuse me, character who should be great in a battle, and instead he's a cowardly, wimpy little POS that is always running away. You learn more about him, and I'm going to stop there because I might be giving something away, and I don't want to do that. This is where me having started into the next book, I can't remember, was this part of the next book or was this part of this book? So I'm going to leave it off for now. But there's enough going on that there's plenty of avenues for the author to take it, and I'm curious to see, is this going to be able to keep my interest? For now, I'm binging this series. I mean, I'm just going straight through. I'm not even watching TV. I'm picking, I'm going to go paint miniatures. I'm going to go out to my wood shop, and I'm going to build frames and signs and stuff. I'm picking things to. I can't go to the gym at all right now. I just had hernia surgery, so all I am allowed to do is walk. I'm getting in I've been averaging about 20,000 steps today. It is, I've been up for 3 hours and I'm at 6,000 steps, so I can listen to it while I'm walking. I'm picking stuff I can do where I can walk or I can listen to the audiobook while I'm doing it, because I really don't want to put this book series down. It's been a very long time since I've been this vested in a book series. Since the last time I was this vested in a book series was probably the Kelcade series. I still like the Kelcade series better, but this book series as of this point in time is one of my top 10 book series out there. And I've listened to enough books in my lifetime by now that top 10 is really, really saying something. I got some great book series that I re-listen to all the time, and they're still not a top 10 favorite of mine. And this one right now is top 10 on my list. So, I've completely lost my transition here. And yeah, that's what I have to say about this book series. I was going to do my normal ending, and I completely lost my normal ending. Yeah. So I don't even, I'm going to have to go back and rewatch some of my videos. They did the hernia surgery, and I have noticed that since it, I'm assuming it's a residual effect of the medication, either the pain medication or the anesthesia. I'm having some memory issues. I'm losing my train of thought more. I'm having trouble remembering things, and I can't remember my transition. I do remember that I always tell you, no matter what else you do today, make sure that today you enjoy at least one really good audiobook. And oh, I very highly recommend the Good Guy series by Eric Ugland. Thank you. Have a great day. See you next time.